Hi everyone, it's Channin here for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, we are going to create this easy slimline shaker using the new Slimline Angled Panel Die that just came out in Waffle Flower's December release. We're going to start actually by ink blending our background. I have a slimline card base here. Well, it's actually a little bit smaller than your typical slimline card base. It is 7 by 8.5 and then scored at 3.5. This size is a little bit more economical when you trim your typical 8.5 by 11 paper down to this size. You'll be left with a fair amount of cardstock that you can even use for the front panel for the shaker card. So this is a little bit more of an economical size. I just rolled a piece of micropore tape and use that to kind of hold this card front shut while I do some ink blending. We are going to do some real light ink blending with Distress Oxides. I started with Worn Lipstick, kind of ink blended randomly. Now I'm on Squeezed Lemonade. Again, just ink blending this lightly and kind of randomly around the front of this card. I'm now moving on to my green, which is Cracked Pistachio. I actually have 5 colors picked out, kind of a rainbow. Hopefully this will look kind of like a soft, diffused kind of rainbow when it's all finished. Now onto my blue Salty Ocean, and then I'll finish up here with my last color, which is Shaded Lilac. After I get kind of this base done, or this first layer of my ink blending, I then will go back through my colors and just kind of ink blend in the same areas where I ink blended that color before and just kind of amp it up, make it a little bit darker, a little bit brighter. I want to do it kind of slowly. That's why I start soft and then kind of build it up, just so I can make sure I like how it's looking so I don't go too dark too fast. Okay, so now that I've finished ink blending this, I'm going to add some water spots. So I'm going to grab my spray bottle here and just spray some water down onto my water media mat, and then just grab a brush, pick up some of that water, and then tap my finger on the brush to release that water over the front of this card. And that's going to create these beautiful soft water spots. After I get this kind of fairly covered, I'll then grab a towel and just place it on top to pick up that water. And you'll see here once I lift that towel up how beautiful that background is with those soft water spots. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and we're now going to move on to our front panel. Again, I'll be using the Slimline Angled Panel Die. This is a beautiful angled striped die with a stitched border. I trimmed down the remaining cardstock left over from creating my slimline card base. This is 3.5 by 8.5, which fits perfectly with this die. I'm going to grab a couple pieces of micropore tape, place it on the back side of the die, then line up my cardstock perfectly with the die. Once I get it lined up, I'll then just start squeezing the paper and the die together, and that will make that micropore tape stick to the cardstock. And now I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. Now, as you can see here, this die just fits my my plates for my die cutting machine, but I find that I get a better cut if I kind of cut it twice or run it through twice. So I'm going to run it through here once. I'm going to cut about 2/3 of the way through my panel. So you can see here I just stopped short at that last third. And all I'm going to do now is just make sure that that tape is still holding that cardstock perfectly in place. Turn it around so I can cut the remaining third of my panel, and then just top it off with my top plate and run it through my die cutting machine. I find I get a much cleaner cut this way than trying to get it all in one go. And you can see here it cut all the way through. So now I'm just going to carefully remove my micropore tape, and I'll have a perfectly cut slimline panel for the top of my shaker card. So we now actually have all our components ready to put the shaker card together. The first thing we're going to do is add a panel of acetate to the back side of our Slimline Angle panel. I'm going to grab some Tumble Mono multi-liquid adhesive here, just add it to the back side of that die cut panel. Make sure if I got any glue on my water media mat to clean that up. Then I'm going to grab my sheet of acetate. Again, this is 3.5 by 8.5, so the same dimensions as the panel. Place it right on top, and then I'll set that aside to dry. We're now going to move on to creating our well. I have this awesome 1/8 of an inch thick strips of foam adhesive. This is super handy. You can find this at scrapbook.com. And I'm going to use this to just build my wells very quickly. I'm just basically going to run these strips around the edge of my front of my card base here. So a really simple way to kind of create your shaker well. So now that I've got all my foam adhesive down, I'm ready to fill my shaker well. So I have this beautiful kind of iridescent clear sequins here. I'm just going to fill this out, fill it or pour it into my shaker well. Make sure that I don't have the sequins kind of stacked up on top of each other, kind of fan it out so they're single stacked. Then I'll remove the backing on the foam adhesive and then just simply place the acetate and angled slimline panel right on top, and my shaker card is basically done. Now all I have left to do is add my sentiment. You can see here it just, all that beautiful shaker contents shakes around in there. It's really pretty. I think that iridescent sequence with that diffused rainbow background. So moving right along to our sentiment, I have the bold alphabet die set here, and I use that to die cut Celebrate. I cut all the letters twice, and now I'm going to just simply adhere them on top of each other. This is going to just create a little bit of dimension, kind of make it pop away from the front of the card a little bit. Now that I've got that all adhered together, I'm going to move on to my sub-sentiment. I have the Sentiment Additions stamp set here. I've grabbed My Friend, and I'm going to stamp it onto some gray cardstock, but I'm going to do some heat embossing, so I applied some anti-static powder first, then stamped my sentiment in Versamark ink, and now I'm going to dip it into my white embossing powder. Of course, tap off the excess, and then heat set with my heat tool. Now that I have that ready to go, I'm going to grab the matching dies. I'm going to grab the My Friend die, just center it here, grab a piece of micropore tape to hold in place, and then run that through my die cutting machine. Here you can see it's all die cut out. I've also added foam adhesive to the back side, and I'm basically ready to wrap this up. The first thing I need to do though is get my die cut sentiment ready to go. So I'm going to get all these letters nice and straight here by using the edge of my water media mat. This is super handy. So once I've got that all kind of lined up, I then just grabbed a long piece of micropore tape to kind of pick up all those letters. And then I'm ready to simply add them to my card. I'm going to grab my liquid adhesive and just place some glue on the back side of them, and then I will pop them down onto the card front. That's a super handy trick when you're dealing with individual letters that you die cut out. Using like the edge of the water media mat or even the well of your MISTI will work. That's super handy. So I've let this dry a little bit, and now I can carefully remove the micropore tape. If you pull it off too quickly, you won't have allowed time for your glue to set, and the letters might move around a little bit. Now all I have to do is just finish with my sub-sentiment, and my card is done. Now hold it up to the camera so you get a good look at all the details in this shaker card. I really love the contrast between the slimline angled panel and that soft diffused rainbow background. I think the two elements really play beautifully upon each other, and I think this would make a really fun birthday card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I used, please head over to Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a wonderful day.